Welcome to this FEI Coach Education webinar. I'm Gareth Barr. Delighted to be joined by Republic of Ireland Under 21 manager and FEI Coach Educator Jim Crawford. Jim, you had a fantastic playing career, 4 league titles with Shelbourne, played in the Premier League with Newcastle, played in England and Scotland, also played for the 21s yourself. But I just want to kind of talk about your transition into coaching. How did that first come about?
My transition into coaching would have happened actually when I signed with Newcastle United. I coached a local team called Walker Boys, and without any sort of coaching qualifications or anything like that, but I enjoyed it. And when I came back to Ireland, I coached in Kildare, where I live now, for local teams called Bush Celtic and Suncroft, and without having any sort of coach education behind me. So it was when I was a Shelbourne player and coming towards the end of my career, so to speak, the PFEI hosted a youth cert, and I said, why not? I'll see what it's like. And I really enjoyed it. But the big problem for me at the time was, although I enjoyed it, it kept coming back on my assessment sheet saying, you need more detail. And I kept scratching my head saying, like, what do you mean? And, I'd ask the tutors, and, it was only then I went back and I done, the PDP1, PDP2, which were formerly known as Kickstart 1 and Kickstart 2, where I started finding out what the detail was in terms of combination play, whether it was an overlap, whether it was a wall pass, third man run. And up till then, my sort of coaching was built on a foundation of sand. So it's when I started getting the detail and start putting into more practice with these teams that I got a stronger grip on coaching. And, with Niall Harrison, he was overseeing the Emerging Talent Programme, and he asked me to get involved in a couple of the centres, and it was something I really enjoyed. And I eventually went on to the B licence. The A licence was something I enjoyed thoroughly, and from that, Paul Doolan asked me to come on board with the under-19s, and that's where it was exciting for me, working with the international team, but as well as working with the under-19s, I was also helping out, again on a volunteer basis, St. Joseph Boys in Dublin, and always wanting to become a better coach with regards to detail that I was talking about earlier on. But under Paul, I learned so much tactically. Then you're at that competitive age group where you're in the qualifying phases, the elite phases, and it was a real steep learning curve for me working under Paul. And then I was fortunate enough to be given an opportunity to work with the under-18s, which was magnificent. And, the staff that I had in with me at the time, we worked together well. That was, Keith Andrews worked with me for a short spell, but then Andy Reid came in with Dennis Hoyland and two fantastic coaches, and Josh Moran, obviously a very experienced goalkeeping coach. So I took so much from that window of my coaching career. And then, eventually I was asked to jump up to the 21s as an assistant, working alongside Keith Andrews again, Dan Connor for the spell, Rene Gilmartin, strength and conditioning coach Damien Doyle, and above all working under Stephen Kenny. And I was, really excited because of how successful he was as a manager, and getting an opportunity to see how he operates. And I wasn't disappointed whatsoever, because I took so much over the last 13 or 14 months working with the group.
Can I just ask you, the lack of detail that you touched on, your school report coming back, with the red X on it, that it kind of sounds surprising, doesn't it, for someone who played at such a high level? So you obviously knew the detail in your mind, but there's a difference, isn't there, from knowing it instinctively as a player to communicating that as a coach?
Huge difference. And the real magic and beauty about coaching is transmitting that information that you know as a player, and that you can see while you watch a game to the players, and that's the magic in it. And it's something that through experience, it's something you develop. And it taught me a harsh lesson, because I knew watching something that, yeah, okay, this should be happening here, but it's getting that out to the players. And communication is a huge skill with coaches, and the only way you get better at it is being on the grass with players, and putting everything that you've learned through coach education into practice.
Was there a degree of patience that you had to learn, or did that come naturally for you? Because obviously you've played to a high level, you've won things as a player, but you have served your time as an assistant before getting the chance with the under 18s as a head coach.
Yeah, but look, the way I seen things was that whatever position I was given, I was going to give it the best shot I can, and whatever happens from that happens from that. So if I was an assistant, I was never looking beyond being the best possible assistant that I could. But while I was an assistant, I was still, trying to become the best possible coach. And, I took the pro license, and the pro license was fantastic for me. You talk about being put outside your comfort zone. There's no doubt about it. That's what the pro license does, whether you're putting on a presentation to your peers or I was selected myself, Stephen Bradley, Graham O'Hanlon, and Ger Dunn were selected as a group of coaches to put on a session in front of our peers over in UEFA HQ. So these were all real learning opportunities that, I took on board quickly. I reflected, and I do think that has helped me progress as a coach, and I'm going to continue doing that going forward.
You must feel now that you're real ready now for this role with the 21s now to take over as under 21s manager.
Yeah, I've been 9 years involved in the international circuit, and I do feel ready, and I think it's important that as much as I feel ready, that the staff is ready, because what we do have is a fantastic group of players to work with. But the thing is, we've got 3 unbelievably tough games, and different games at that, ahead of us. We've got Italy, who are seeded number 1 in the group. Italy away, which is it's going to be a real test. And then at home to Iceland, which Iceland have already beat us in the group 1-0. They're physical, they're very well organised, extremely good counter-attacking team, who are very efficient at set pieces too. So that's going to be a different challenge altogether, but equally as tough. And then final game of the group will be Luxembourg away, and I think we all know the way Luxembourg will play. They'll get bodies behind the ball. They try to catch you out on a counter attack, and we've got to be prepared for that. We've got to be prepared that our objective with that particular game will be how to break them down and move the ball quickly, and combination play higher up the pitch, and it's something that we'll be ready for.
I know we're going, during the presentation here, we're going to have a look at, particularly the Sweden game, but it helps you coming into the role, doesn't it, that you've already got familiarity with your own players, your own pool of players, but also the opposition as well. So you're not coming in blind, or it's not a fresh kind of thing for you.
Yeah, look, I know the players have worked with them for the campaign. As I said to you already, they're a special bunch of players, and I had the privilege of working with a few of them at the emerging talent level, at under 18s. So I know them well, and look, they've all got great values as people, and fantastic potential as players. So it's up to me to keep helping them along the journey, because again, the ultimate goal as an under 21s coach is seeing these players progress into the senior international team.
Brilliant. Jim, you've prepared a presentation for this webinar. We want to have a look.
Now, my presentation today is ultimately about the under-21s attacking principles, and I'm going to be using our game away to Sweden to highlight these principles.
Okay.
I just hope from the presentation itself that, I know I'm going to be sharing knowledge to the coaches. I hope they take certain points on board. I'll be going through our attacking principles of play, the whole training cycle from the analysis of the opposition to the training pitch to the game itself. And I'm going to finish obviously with a little bit of work for the coaches to do to gain their CPD hours for their qualifications. Lots of good goals there, Garrett, and there was a hell of a lot of good build-up play as well to get to those goal scoring opportunities. But our attack and play principles would have been introduced on our very first meeting before we played our first game against Luxembourg in the European campaign. And like for me, it's all right presenting the principle of play to the players, but then it's up to the staff to keep reinforcing our information to the players in training sessions, during games, and at halftime. But I thought the Toulon tournament, just after that March window, was where we could really embed the attacking principles, whether it was the training sessions, the patterns of play that we worked with the players on the training grass, or on the training ground, and the quality of games where they had to implement these attacking principles. We were playing games against Mexico, who were the current Olympic gold medalists. They won a gold medal in the London Olympics. China, who were managed by Gus Hiddink. Brazil, probably one of the best teams in the world at under 23. And, they had players like, there was Douglas Luiz, there was Emerson, he was a right back. Within the region of 15 million, people were saying that this player was worth. So really high pedigree opposition, and the players responded well. They were excellent, and I feel that was perhaps the turning point for a lot of those players, because I think we only had about 6 or 7 players who were playing first team football at that particular time. And when you look at then compared to now, how many of them have been, in around the first team, knocking at the first team door, it's quite high. But I do think that the Toulon tournament was a great foundation for them to embed the attacking principles that we expect of them at under 21s level. And if we go through them, you've got the build up where we want our goalkeeper to start all the attacks, and we're fortunate enough to have goalkeepers who are comfortable in possession of the ball. They understand different ways that teams might press or trap you, and we've got intelligent goalkeepers in the squad who understand various escape routes, so we can get playing.
Yeah.
Something we always preach about: maximum distance between defenders when we're in possession of the ball. Always looking to pass in front of the players, and again, that depends on how the opposition are playing too.
That's a simple point, though, Jim, isn't it? It's a simple coaching point that can apply to grassroots level, even, isn't it? Play the ball in front of a player rather than them being caught behind, having the turn, getting caught in possession or whatever.
Yeah, without a doubt. Look, you're passing to a player in front of them so he can maximise that particular opportunity when there's space in front of him, and if you see somebody who's passing the ball to the other side of the defender, it gives the opposition time to get set again. So it's keeping up the momentum of the attack.
Yeah.
Midfield being fluid, players interchanging positions, which is a very important part of our play, our attacking play.
Could you give an example of that, Jim, just of players that might interchange positions in your midfield?
Well, it's really about rotation, and what you want to do is provoke a reaction from a compact, disciplined opposition setup. So if you've got, whether it's Jack Taylor or Dan Mandrew, who, let's say they're playing in that 10 position, we don't mind them dropping into deeper positions to get on the ball, as long as the angles and distances of those 3 midfield players is good, and they can find the right passes when they get into those positions. If the opponents don't break away from that defensive shape, we're still in control of the ball, and we've got somebody else to pass, whether it's Jack or Dan Mandrew, and you just keep possession of the ball until the time is right, because there will be a time when the opposition switch off and you can find those passes that you're looking for in between your opponent's defensive line and midfield line.
Okay.
Just always looking to attack with 5 players, dominate possession, as I was saying there, and injecting tempo, understand the time to play first time. Fullbacks and wingers not in the same line, and fullbacks and wingers joining in the attacks on the ball side too. Attacking players, always positive, utilise the creativity that they have, and that's something that we're big on with the 21s. Always looking to have 3 players in the box to attack crosses, and they are either the number 8, the 10, the opposite wide player, and your striker. And then just a couple of points with the striker, having that dual responsibility of his back to goal, holding up play so he can get us higher up the pitch. And has he also got that characteristic of knowing when to play in behind? And also with the centre forward, intelligent movement, the timing of his runs, and obviously to score goals.
When you drew up these principles, Jim, is this coming from Stephen Kenny, or is this a collective thing that the staff would have come together, or is it also something that's influenced by high performance director Rio Doctor as well?
Well, our first meeting, Stephen would have drove the principles, and we'd be all just bouncing off each other while we were putting the presentation together. But it's the same sort of thread of principles that run through the 19s, the 18s, 17s, 16s, 15s, and even now up to the under 14s, and with Niall Harrison and think it was James Scott that was looking after the under-14s group this season. But it'd be the same.
And when you, obviously this is your kind of your mantra almost, like this is what you want to achieve and what you want the players to take on. What happens when that can't happen? For example, if you come up against a team, you mentioned Luxembourg earlier, if they come up to negate you and they come up to play, you know, four lines of players against you, like, you know, what do you do then?
I think you've got to be true to your principles. You've got to trust in them. You've got to trust in the players, because when you come up against stubborn defenses, you know, if you see one of the points there, utilising your creativity, can you get those type of players on the ball in the right areas of the pitch? You know, if you've got maximum distance between players, you know, and you're keeping good possession of the ball, you're dominant in possession, you're going to open up spaces at some stage of the game. So it's being true to your principles and having trust in them.
Trust is a big word there, really, isn't it? And trusting the players to take that on. And even if the going isn't, you know, going your way in the first half, you know, that you stick to those principles because you ultimately trust that this is going to achieve the result in the end.
Yeah, look, we went a goal down against Sweden in both games, and you know, we just kept playing, applying our attacking principles, and eventually we broke them down and got 2 positive results. So I think it's a perfect example of you don't discard them and start doing your own thing. The players understand what we're looking for as a staff, and you know, that's hugely important if you want to be involved in a successful team.
Okay, let's have a look at the Sweden game.
Well, before I move on, I think it's important to talk about the September window, because before we played Sweden, we played against Armenia and we beat them 1-0 in Talis Stadium. Troy Parrott on his debut scoring a goal, and it was a very good performance, and again it was a win, it was a great result. But then our second game of that window was against Sweden, and as you see there, we made 3 changes with the attacking players. So Jonathan Afolabi came in, Dan Mandrew came in, and Zach Elbouzedi came in wide right. And just sort of stepping into a little bit on the culture side, you know, we've all got a high performance culture, and that's driven from under 15s, under 19s, and obviously the under 21s. And that's where the head coach of each of those age groups, and Stephen Kenny, takes charge of and creates that culture. And he demands high standards in anything. So if you've got to put on a presentation, it's got to be top class. And when he puts on a training session, it's got to be top class. And that's high performance culture. That is driven through all the age groups. But what also is sort of created is an environment where you can go express yourself, you can go and be creative, and that's hugely important. And Stephen's, you know, he's got these man management skills that he's trusts his players. And that's from player number 1 to 22. No matter how big the squad is, there's a real trust there from Stephen with the players, and the players trust Stephen. So when he made the decision to make 3 changes, of course there was disappointment. Of course there was. And to a degree, you're sort of saying, yeah, the players are disappointed. That's great because they care. But because he showed trust in the players, and the players that were left out who were disappointed, they all see the vision, the bigger picture here of being the first under 21s team to qualify for the finals. And we have an environment or a culture that's here, that's players relish coming into the 21s. They love coming in to learn, to compete. Because if you don't have it, if it's the wrong environment or the wrong culture, you'll stifle that creativity that we're talking about. Players will end up playing with tunnel vision, and you'll inhibit their development. So you ask yourself, okay, what does culture look like? You know, for me, culture, you know, it's players, you know, behaving properly, you know, in around camp, the airports, the hotels. It's, you know, on match day, what are they like when they go a goal behind? And you've seen that against Sweden, against Iceland. There was never a chance we were giving up. And I think that's a measurement of culture. The transition to defend function of the game. When you see that, okay, when we're in possession of the ball and we give the ball away, how do we react as a team? And you see everybody understands what we've got to do. Yeah, let's get the ball back quickly. Let's get back into that defensive shape as quick as we can. That, to me, is a measure of culture. Another measure would be probably match day +1, where those players who've been left out of the team, or those players who only played 5 or 10 minutes, have got to come in the next day and train and top up their training loads that they've missed. And those match day +1 sessions, they're highly competitive. The players enjoy them. And going by their GPS data, you know that they've worked as hard as they can. And that, to me, is culture. And we've got it at the 21s.
And that culture, as you say, is represented in the fact that the 3 changes are made here, and they're bold calls in many ways, because you're going in against Sweden. You could have easily stayed with the same team, for consistency purposes or whatever. But there's trust again, placing these players to come in and pick up where the system, pick up the style of play, pick up all the attacking principles that you spoke about.
Without a doubt. And they were big calls. You're playing against Sweden, who are ranked number 2 in the group. Troy Parrott scores a winner against Armenia, and we made 3 changes. But I think, as I said, yes, players are disappointed, but they see the bigger picture, and that's important. That it's 1 to 22, and that's what a positive culture is all about.
Jim, can I just touch on this lineup before we move on? 3 of the guys, and I don't mean this in a tokenistic kind of way whatsoever, because you and I are both big fans of the League of Ireland, but there are 3 guys in the starting lineup there, Zach Albazetti, Dan Mandrew and Darragh Lee, who were playing in the League of Ireland at the time. How much of a boost do you think that was for the league, for these guys to play, but also, I suppose, a reflection of the league that you were able to trust them because they were playing men's football week in, week out at that time?
Yeah, it's great for the league that you've got these players who are starting the game, and there was other players who didn't start who were also involved in the league. And I think it shows, the strides the league is taking. At under 21 level, you've got players who are playing for the Irish under 21s, and like, definitely when I was growing up, it was just about unheard of. But these players can hold their own, and going back to Toulon, these players, they played against Brazil, who I would say are probably the best under 23 team in the world, and all these players here held their own and represented themselves and the league admirably.
Very good.
Just now going to move on to the game itself against Sweden. Why did I pick Sweden? Of all my 9 years involved in international football, I thought it was the best attacking performance that I was involved in. Sweden, as I said, they were no mugs. They came in here with 3 games under their belts, where they beat Finland, they beat Norway, they beat Scotland. So a very good team to say the least. But I'm going to talk about the training cycle, and just from the analysis side of it, we knew how Sweden were going to shape up in that 1-4-4-2 formation. And, we're independent thinkers, our staff, when it comes to tactics. And we knew what way, even before, and this is no disrespect to Finland or Norway, we knew what way we were going to play to break them down. And it's really about us as a staff getting the individuals to flourish. It's about us as a staff to provide a platform for these players to excel and to show how good they are. So we had to back it up by analysing Sweden and showing it to the players. And Keith Andrews, it was his job to analyse Sweden, and he'd done a fantastic job where he went through the 4 functions of Sweden. He picked out their weaknesses, their strengths, and individual clips too, you know, who was their threats, and he also went through their set pieces. So it was an excellent analysis of them, and it sort of gave us a start when it came to designing training sessions and what have you. The training sessions, you know, there's different parameters that have to be taken into consideration with the training sessions. So if you had a player who was playing with his club, let's say Dara Leahy or Liam Scales were playing with their clubs before they came in, you had to be careful and you had to take that on board to mind their training loads. They might have a recovery day while everybody else is training. So they're the types of scenarios that are presented to you as a staff that you have to be careful of.
And you only have a certain amount of training sessions before this game as well.
Exactly. So it's time is limited. So, you know, the detail has got to be right. It's got to be right. And that's why the bulk of our training sessions will be 11v11 games, which would be reality-based learning for the players. And it's within the framework that, you know, we teach a coach education, that players are, you know, for example, with the 11v11 games, Keith would be looking after one team and Stephen and myself would be looking after the Republic of Ireland team. So Keith is setting up his team as Sweden, what they'll do out of possession, in possession, and that itself provides that reality-based learning that you're looking for. And the games, they're at high intensity, and you've got the GPS data to back that up too. And all the coaching, so rather than stopping it during the game where you're going to affect the intensity, all the coaching would come at the natural breaks, the water breaks, or perhaps at the end of a block where if we play 3 12-minute games, after the first 12-minute game, you know, you've got 3 or 4 minutes to go over your attacking principles or defending or the transitions, whatever you see fit. But probably the most important part is as a staff, we get the footage of training sessions immediately after, and we'd have our own staff meeting and we go through various clips, and it gives us an opportunity to show certain individuals certain things that they done during training that possibly they could do better, or something that they done that was really, really good that we say, you got to keep that up. Those meetings might turn out to be meetings for units, might be just working on the attackers. Keith might take the attackers and have a meeting with the units, or it might be the team where Stephen would take charge of showing the clips to the players in front of the squad of 22 players.
How responsive do you find the players in those types of meetings and those types of discussions?
I think it's important that the information you give them is sort of bite-sized information. It's not information overload, but they are very receptive. And you know they're receptive because they've got questions to come back at you, you know. So it shows that, you know, these players, they're open to learning. They want that attention to detail. And that's important. And it's refreshing too. And you can only, you know, see in the next session that they're trying the things that you're asking them to do in that previous session. Just on match day, those snippets of information. I know this presentation is about the attacking side, so you'd be giving the attacking players or your midfield players those snippets of information that you've been giving them all along the previous training sessions.
Okay.
Just a quick sort of overview of Sweden. You know, as I stated already, they're rated second in the group. They play with a 1-4-4-2 formation, and the number 9, Kulusevski, went to Juventus for 35 million. You know, so that's the quality of player you're up against. Swanberg in the middle of the park, 5 million. You know, you've got Aaron Dust, who's played 3 senior international games already. And then you've got the other centre forward there, Kimpioka, who's a Sunderland player too. So, you know, a really, really top pedigree team managed by Roland Nielsen. Used to play as a fullback with Sheffield Wednesday and Coventry City, and he managed Coventry as well. So vast experience as a coach and a manager. So we knew it was going to be a difficult game going out to Sweden.
Okay.
Just going to sort of go through the tactics board, so to speak, here before I go into the clips. And one of the things that we speak about in training is trying to play between the lines and how effective that is. And in order to do that, you know, you need to control the game. You need to string your passes together, and the weight and accuracy of your passes has got to be right. The distance between the players has got to be right. That you're shifting the opposition as best you can. And if you just see this, where you've got our fullback or number 3, we don't want that player that high, because then he sort of eliminates that potential space from maybe our number 8 or our wide left, our number 11 might roll in off the touchline and he might get the ball into that pocket of space. But that's the sort of thing we're looking for, where balls in between the opposition defensive line and in behind the opposition midfield line. They're the key target areas that we look to exploit.
Just always in between their defense and midfield, effectively.
Yes, yeah, that's, you know, they're the key areas that, you know, if you can get the ball in comfortable possession in those areas there, you know, you're on the front foot, and then it's up to that little bit of creativity, or it goes back to the attacking principles. If we're attacking on the right-hand side, can we get an overload on that side with our full-back joining in? How about our movements from the centre forward, those diagonal runs in behind, or is he going to link up to his feet and we play from there?
Okay.
So just going to go through these clips. Here's our analysis of Sweden. As you can see there, they're in a 1-4-4-2 shape, mid-block, compact, connected. But see the fullback at the other side of the circle, dropping deep to creating that space in between the lines again. They get another go at it. 2 midfielders trying to defend zonely, and you get into that space in between the lines. Here we are in training, a higher press from the red team, and look at this for creativity and awareness and getting in behind their midfield line. Now you're in their attacking third. There are longer passes that move that Swedish structure that we talked about. Good passes. Now we're talking about good weight of pass. Finding tri-parted in between the lines. And can we play from there? Okay, the execution doesn't work, but they're getting the idea of where we're trying to target. There's no pressure from the opposition, but it's excellent link-up play from our attacking midfielder into our striker. And back onto our principles. We get the ball out on the right, and you're seeing Lee O'Connor joining in. And look where we are now.
Good.
Here's the game. Look at the vision, creativity from Dan Mandrew. Now we're on the other side of our defensive line. And look where we are. Look at our shape behind the ball. Very same thing again. Conor Coventry drops in between the 2 centre halves. And look at that ball into Jason Malumbi. Now look where we are on the pitch. Dara Leahy joining in. And again, if I have to be overcritical, maybe our centre midfielder there, where the Swedish player has the ball, could have been maybe a little bit higher to pen them in that area of the pitch.
Jim, can I just ask, just that pass that you're looking to play there, straight through into someone just beyond the opposition's midfield? It's a risky pass in some ways, isn't it? Because it's going through possibly a couple of different bodies, or it's a longer pass per se, isn't it? So there's a bit of risk involved.
Yeah, there's risk and reward where, if you're successful with that pass, you're on the other side of their midfield line and you're taking 5 or 6 players out of the game. But in order to execute that pass, you've got to understand, the distances between the players you're playing against, how far you are away from them, the pace that needs to be played, and then the receiving player, that his body shape is correct and he's receiving it and he's turning on his first touch. So there's all those little details that are involved in playing between the lines. But yeah, it can be risky, but if you understand, if the pass is on or not, it's a great start to be successful with that football action.
And it's a really good example when you look at the clips there of what you were speaking about earlier in terms of the interchanging of personnel. Because at one stage we saw in the clip Troy Parrott picking up the possession in that area, and then in another match clip we see Dan Mandreu doing it just as we've seen. So whatever the personnel, they're able to slot into those positions and still take up what the game plan is and the attacking principles.
Yeah, it's the players understanding the attacking principles, and it's their creativity and their vision and the pictures that they have in their head of what to do next that gets you higher up the pitch or creates an opportunity on goal. So it's something that you don't want to stifle because they're very, very good players. So we go into what you spoke about earlier on, or the question you asked about the rotation in midfield. And, before this pass is made on the tactics board by the number 4, we're assuming that we're in good control of the football. And then as that is happening, we don't mind our midfielders dropping in between the centre-back and the full-back, like just shown here, where your full-back will go in advance and your wide player will roll in off the touchline into that pocket of space, hopefully provoking some sort of movement from the opposition to create passing lanes into your 11 in that pocket of space, or it might go into the back foot of your fullback where he can then take a touch beyond the opposition midfield line and create a 1v1 for himself, or quite possibly a 2v1 if the wide left joins in. So
every movement of a player is calculated with the intention of opening up options for passing.
Yes, and in this clip here, which happened quite regularly against Sweden, that they didn't, and nobody committed to the pressure from the Sweden team. So if this happens where this very same movement happens where your midfielder, it might be your number 8, it might be the 6, it might be the 10 that drops into those false fullback positions as they're known as, and there's no pressure, what happens then is you've got a 3v2 situation down the side of the pitch. So now it's up to the 3 players with regards to communication, decision-making and execution at high intensity to take advantage of that situation.
Okay.
So just on the clips here, we'll have a look at midfield rotations. This is the analysis that Keith picked up, where with a little bit of rotation, you'll end up with space and opportunities like this. Getting the players into those areas that we spoke about earlier on. And we found against Sweden, there was always space in front of the back 4 that you could exploit.
Yeah.
Here we are in training. You see Conor Coventry drop into that false fullback position, and there's that triangle that we spoke about. Left back, wide left rolling in on the inside. It's not on to go forward. So we dominate possession. We go out the other side. Now we can attack down the right-hand side. Here it is in the game, that same triangle that we're talking about where Jason Malumbi has dropped there. You see Aaron Conley playing on the shoulder of the fullback and centre-back. You see Jason coming in to join in the attack, and that's that transition to defend. He wins it back, and we get a shot on target from Dan Mandrew. Here we are again, controlling possession of the ball. You see Jason Malumbi checking his shoulders, dropping into that space. And there's a diamond. And if you would have seen Dan Mandrew coming towards the ball, creating that space because his opponent went with him. And it was unfortunate. I thought it was a little bit of a cheap free kick that the referee gave Sweden. Here's that diamond again. Dan Mandrew now dropping deeper as a pivot. And you just see Aaron Conley, our wide left, playing on the shoulder, getting in behind. So that's our number 10 dropping deeper. And this is where we're in the final tour, that little bit of creativity and individualism to get a strike on goal.
All those movements as well, it's stretching the Swedish team as well. It's pulling them and dragging them out of their traditional shape as well.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying on the tactics board. That's what you're looking for, that little bit of rotation and communication between players too, which is important.
Good.
Here's another one to play over the press. It's about controlling the game in good possession, which will create opportunities that you might have to go over the press. So what it is controlling the game, drawing the opposition higher up the pitch that will leave space between their defending line and their midfield line. And that's our target area, into a striker's feet. Okay, so it's not a blind pass. It's a ball that's designed to go to your striker's feet. And then as that happens, it's about joining up, linking up, and good attack and play to get higher up the pitch. Here you are playing against Norway, Sweden. And this is what Keith picked up. You see there, compact, connected, 1-4-4-2. Ball's played in. Now you got the press is on. It goes back to a centre-back. They're pressing the wide left for Sweden, a little bit slow getting there. And one pass will take 6 players out of the game. Now look where Norway are. Getting into the final third. With a half chance. So the players understood that. And here we are in training, where the yellows are higher up the pitch. And this time Dan Mandrew dropping to take the attention of the left midfielder with the yellows. It's played over the press. Now Leo O'Connor was facing the back four. Queeveen, his distribution, very important to us. Recognising there was a high press on. Recognising the space. And with one pass like that, we're in the final third. Here we are in the match. You've got Conor Coventry dropping in between the 2 centre-backs again to draw up the Swedish midfield. Even Dan Mandrew drops a little bit more, creating that space for Jonathan Afolabi. And we get a 1v1 for a period of time there, but it goes out for a throw-in. It's Queeveen recognising it's a high press. And Troy dropping into that bit of space. And this is great play coming from some calm distribution from Queeveen. Here's our principles of play, our left back joining in, and look where we are. Bodies in the box, and a great opportunity. Yeah, so this next part of the presentation will be talking about playing around the defence or switching the play. And again, it's about controlling the game. So if you can just see here on the tactics board, the way you control possession, you're moving the opposition, then you get to one area of the pitch, hopefully drawing Sweden to one side of the pitch. And with a couple of short passes, now it's about the communication between players, the decision making, the execution, about switching the play and getting down the sides of teams. So we look here at Finland, keeping possession of the ball. And the way Sweden has set up in that, again, compact shape, mid-block, 1-4-4-2. Now you see the opportunity to get in behind the back four. So it's got to be those clever diagonal runs. And then when you get into the final third, it's about getting players into the box and hopefully create a goal-scoring opportunity. Here, longer passes that stretch that compact shape. Now you've got an overload in the middle here, 2v1 in the middle of the pitch. Now have a look at how compact Sweden are, protecting the centre area of their pitch. So what options have you got? Without forcing it, can you switch the play? Now you're in the final third. And this is the area of the pitch where we look for that creativity. And again, back to training. The ball into Adamida, our striker. And it's those little short passes that draw in the wide right from the red team, creating that space on this side. Now you're into the opponent's half. Here's our opportunity to go down the side. We didn't take it, but now you've got the Reds over one side of the pitch. Can you go and exploit their weak side? Keeping possession of the ball, not forcing it, but this little pass around the corner forces the Reds to get compact again. And you see Liam Scales, our left fullback, recognising the spaces down the sides. And Troy Parrott joins in the attack. And again, it's that little bit of individual skill that he creates for himself that gets a shot. Here we are in the game. Change direction of the play into Aaron Conley, who protects the ball well, works a bit of space, and gets a shot off where we get a corner kick. But, you know, the whole switching of the play and playing down the sides wasn't an area of our attacking game that we broke them down, because there just wasn't many examples of that in the game. And it just shows that not all the information you give the players during team meetings or training sessions, you know, are going to happen, you know. So that's a prime example. Yes, we spoke to players about it, but it wasn't necessarily the strong part of our game that particular evening.
When you're trying to play that way, Jim, I appreciate just what you said, that sometimes it doesn't always come off, but when you want to switch the play, do you want your wingers to kind of stay wide as possible, or do you want them to naturally drift into those positions when you have possession of the ball?
Well, everything depends on what the opposition do, you know. So if the opposition have a good shape about them, you know, what you'd be looking for is, can you draw the opposition to an area of the pitch, and then it's you having that picture in your mind to say, okay, now we've got somebody wide with plenty of space. Can I make that pass to my teammate? Or it might be a space between, let's say, a fullback who's out of shape and the centre back, and there might be that space in between that when you win it, yeah, you're still changing the point of attack, but the player isn't so wide. But again, it's that communication. It's about the player receiving the ball, to have that picture in his mind. And that's essential.
And there's also probably another point, because they're playing so compact, like your players could almost be attracted to that, to kind of drift in towards them a little bit rather than kind of separating themselves. Like they have to remind themselves of the space that is available.
Yeah, and that's something that we've seen through the analysis, from day one, that look, they do tend to get into that compact shape. So it is something to look out for. So players are aware of this type of thing before they get into the game against Sweden. Just going to go through the goals here, Gareth.
Okay.
Today's presentation is all about attack and play and goals, and I'm sure the coaches want to see the goals that were scored that day. And here we are, going a goal down from a fantastic shot from Svanberg. This goal here was disallowed, but I want to show it because it just reflects back to our principles that I was talking about. 3 players attacking the ball, 1 on the edge of the box. And here's the equaliser. Jonathan Afolabi does well. And the reaction from Troy, and an unbelievable finish to make the game 1-1. Here's a set piece. Something Stephen does a lot of work on, is getting set pieces right, and rightly so. And for me, this picture coming up just sums up what I was talking about earlier on, culture. All the players together, the staff together. I think it's an unbelievable picture. And that's what we're about with the under-21s. Long direct ball by Sweden. We win the first ball. We pick up the ball in the second phase, and look in this pass, the weight of pass, the accuracy by Jason Malumbi. And what a finish by Troy.
You could watch that all day long.
You're dead right. It was an unbelievable finish. And again, the celebrations from everybody. It was a fantastic performance.
Jim, even though you went to goal down in that game, you showed tremendous calmness and to stick to your attacking principles, and great technique as well in completing that comeback.
Yeah, definitely. Look, the boys, they're focused, they understand the principles, and there was no sign of panic. We just got hold of the ball and we controlled it, and eventually, even before Sweden scored, we were creating chances, but we kept creating chances on the evening, and eventually we scored, and it was a fantastic performance. But it wasn't the only game we went behind. We went behind against Iceland, and the players didn't veer anyway away from the principles either, because when we went to go behind, we got a grip on the game in Iceland, and we still created chances, but we were unlucky. And another day we could have scored a couple of goals against Iceland away. And then everybody knows the game in Tallaght against Sweden, where we went the goal down again, and the second half performance was excellent, and we ran out 4-1 winners against them. So there's serious quality with this group of players. And here's the stats of the game, and it just shows we've come here to Sweden. They're the second seeds in the group, and then it shows that we control the game there. If you see in the left-hand box with possession, 57% of possession that we had, and it shows that we control the game. And we control the game with purpose, because, it's not just passing the ball for the sake of passing the ball. What we're doing is shifting the opposition and looking to create openings that we can exploit Sweden. And that's exactly what we did. If you look at the right-hand box, 55 attacks and 21 shots on goal from those 55 attacks. Yeah, if you see the very bottom box there on the right-hand side, most of our attacks, 63% of them were central. And I think that underlines that a lot of our attacks came through playing through the lines, getting into a striker's feet, or finding Jason Malumbi in between the defensive line and midfield line, or Dan Mandrew. And it proves that the information that was delivered in team meetings, unit meetings, individual meetings, and the information given on the training pitch was successful and worked.
It's really encouraging when you see stats like this, Jim, as I say, because the plan has come together, hasn't it? You do have to take into account that You are playing away from home. They are the second seeds in the group, and you were a goal down.
Yeah, and it makes the stats even more impressive. But there was one thing about our performance on the defensive side. We weren't sitting back and letting them control the game. We were on the front foot from the very start. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to press them as high as we possibly could up the pitch. But when we were in control of the football, that we dictate what was going to happen. And as the stats back up, that's what we did.
Jimmy, you've mentioned about culture around the squad, and I think these stats kind of emphasise that culture as much as anything, because they've showed resilience in this game, but also, commitment to sticking to those attacking principles as well.
Yeah, with the group of players, as I said before, they're a talented group of players with massive potential. But you only have to look at our training sessions, how competitive they are, even in team meetings, unit meetings, as I said before, individual meetings. The players, they're just so open to information. They want to learn, they want to get better, and they're able to do that and illustrate that when they go onto the pitch. And I think it's that type of character that you need for successful teams, and I think they showed that in this game against Sweden on that particular evening.
Good stuff.
So, just to conclude my presentation, I hope the coaches, have taken something from the presentation, and, with regards to the attacking principles and, how the staff formulated these principles and how we use them as a guide throughout the campaign, and how we use them as a reference when we come to our training sessions, team meetings, and culture. And it's important having a positive culture if you're going to talk to the players about, let's go and express ourselves, let's go and be an attacking team. It's very important that the culture is that, go and be creative, go and be an individual in the right areas of the pitch. And that's hugely important. So the way culture and the attacking side of the game are connected is hugely important. And then you've got the training cycle. For that September window, I would have done Armenia. I would have analysed Armenia. So it would have been my job when we were playing the 11v11 games in training. I had to shape my team up exactly the way Armenia would set up. And likewise, when Keith's done the analysis on Sweden, he had to shape up Sweden into that 1-4-4-2 formation when we were training. So it's about getting that reality-based environment that, players are under no illusions what they're going to come up against with on game day. So I hope the coaches out there enjoyed the presentation, but before they go, I've got an assignment, and there's a little bit of role playing with this assignment, and here it is as follows. You are the newly appointed Republic of Ireland under-21 scout. Can you watch the above game by clicking on the link here and deliver 1, a match report on Iceland and Iceland only, recommendations on how to break them down with attack and play. The assignment guidelines: concentrate on Iceland, as I said, only in relation to the 4 functions. So, can you write about what way they attack, transition to defend, defending, and transition to attack? The 4 functions will be your template headings for your match report. And what recommendations would you suggest on how to build up and score, which is the attacking side of the game, from your report? So after your report, you'd come into the under-21 staff and you'd say, here's what I suggest you work on with regards to your attack and play. And all I'm looking for is 4 to 5 bullet points on that. And the most important thing is for all the coaches out there is to stay safe and keep learning.
Good stuff. As for anybody who's interested in doing that assignment, it's open to UEFA licensed coaches as well as grassroots coaches. You can earn up to 3 hours CPD. You have a week to complete the assignment. Send it into jim.crawford@fai.ie, and we'll post a link to download that game as well, with the show notes here as well, so you can get access to that. And best of luck with that. And thank you for watching this webinar, and thanks, Jim, for a great presentation. Fantastic look into how things are done with the 21s, but how attacking principles stay true as well. And really good insight. Thanks very much, Jim.
Thanks for being Gareth. Thank you.
And thanks for watching. Make sure to give us some feedback by leaving some comments on social media, and make sure to subscribe to us on FAI TV on YouTube. Thank you very much.